Oh, hi everyone. My name is Larry. I was the president. Oh, I'll give a little introduction later. So I'm going to be talking to you guys today about applying your game dev skills to other industries. First of all, we have the sign-in sheet. I think. Right. All right. So these slide formats are really cool. You guys did a great job with the new slide. Oh man, Aiden isn't even here. This joke was for Aiden. Sorry, guys. We're going back to the old slides back when I was president. So, hi, welcome to the CPP Game Development Club. My name is Lawrence. I'm going to be talking about applying your game dev skills and applying them to other industries. So, first, a little introduction about myself. I'm an associate soft. I'm an, asso- I'm an associate software engineer. I was a computer science major and I graduated class of 2024. I was also the GDC president of 2022 to 2023. And yes, that's if you guys have seen Dachi send the Larry egg or Larry face, I don't know what it is, Larry egg emo. That's my face, and I do have a body pillow of Thicky Des that my board gave me when I finished the presidency. I have that cube in my car. I know you do. Here's some of the game pitches that I worked on. I worked on Cowboy Zelda, and then the following years I led Lamrith Run. We played Tanks, and Gunslinger Hilda. So I've done a bunch of game pitches myself. Um, and then some of the games I've been playing recently. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon. ZA, it's the most mid Pokemon game you'll ever play, but like I eat that shit up. Persona 4 Golden, I played 10 hours of it, then realized there's still 90% of the game left. And then I've been playing this Beyblade roguelike called From the Top. It's like $5 on Steam. It's really good, guys. And then I've unfortunately, to Dachi's dismay, I do play a lot of Overwatch. I do consume it, except for From the Top. That shit's peak. Nah. Anyways, so I also on the side, Dachi allowed me to plug this. I work at a team called PyDev Studios. We started here at the Game Dev Club, but we've started to expand and publish our games to Steam. We're currently working on a game called Absolute Momentum, and you guys should wishlist it on Steam. I'll have a link later to. Anyways, so here let's talk about what I'm actually here to talk to you guys about. We're here to talk about the job market. I think this slide says a lot. But yeah, the job market is in a bit of a rough state, especially if you're trying to get into the games industry. That There's been reports of, I'm sure you guys have heard the constant layoff that have been going into the game industry. And entry level roles are probably at an all-time low. However, this isn't about trying to get into the game industry. This is about how you can apply your game pitches to other industries that you work for. So, fortunately for you guys, being in this game dev club and working on the game pitches, the projects that you work on have actually very transferable skills to other industries. You just need to know how to market your game as a specific type of project to whatever type of industry you go to. And it actually expands way more than just general software engineering. And this talk will mostly apply to software engineers and a bit to artists. There are other ways for like composers and writers to also find jobs outside of their respect, outside of the game specific industries. However, most of my knowledge is with computer science, and I have a few friends who work in animation, so I did get their insight into like other industries for artists. So let's start off with computer science. If you're a computer science major, you should always be applying to software engineering. General software engineering is a role that you should always be applying for, and there's different technologies that you could use as a software engineer when you're doing your game pitches, and you could reword your game projects to sort of fit the job description of what you're looking for. Whenever you're talking about your game projects, if you do something unique, like if you're working on a specific algorithm, if you use different data structures, focus on that. Elaborate on the type of data structures you use and how that like helped different mechanics in your game. Don't focus on the actual gameplay itself. No recruiter is gonna no recruiter at like a tech company is gonna see like, oh, I made a first person shooter, and they're gonna be like, yeah, but they're gonna understand like if you're using they might be able to understand if you're using if you talk about the raycast that you use, or if you made a like if you made a roguelike, talk about the procedural generation algorithm that you use, and that will help a lot. And then the two most important ones, if you don't have like specific algorithms you want to talk about, is your team collaboration and problem solving. A lot of software engineers or a lot of computer science majors that I met by the time I graduated, especially here in Pomona, don't have a lot of projects on your resume. So just by being in this club and doing your game pitches, you already have a step up, especially in the team collaboration and problem solving, which helps a lot. Just getting an interview and even participating in those interviews. So this is an example of for the job that I currently got this is an example of the resume that I used for the job that I currently got. And surprisingly, out of all of these like projects, all of these software engineering projects, they asked the most about my game dev project. This was a prototype of Absolute Momentum and another game that we made called Solar Suites at the time. And really, I like worked on the back end API so you could play online multiplayer. But even if you're not doing something super fancy, I worded um how I coded the UI. And that was some of the questions that they were asking me. It's like, oh, how did you make your UI dynamic? And even if it was in the game engine and the company I work at isn't a game company, they were asking how can I apply this to their front end and their technologies. So it's really about finding the parts of your project that are applicable to like the product that the company serves, and then you could find a way to sort of word like how you applied like the logic of building that tool in your game and apply it to the company's needs. And I assume most of you guys will be using game engines. Uh, these are probably the most popular game engines that you guys are using. I'm a religious Unity user, unfortunately, so yeah. So if you're using Unity, you're already using C Sharp, and that's a huge advantage, especially in jobs in South Orange County. A lot of them love using C Sharp, and then if you're going to be doing, I believe it's a software engineering class, you're going to be creating an application in that class, or like a full stack application in that class, and you'll need to create a backend. .NET is a wonderful .NET is a great way to make a backend API using C Sharp. And since you already have the C Sharp knowledge, you might as well learn a bit of .NET while you're doing that project. Yes. Oh, backend API is like an access point for data. So like, let's say you click on a button, and it shows like a list. Let's say you're on like a Wikipedia page, and then you click on a page, and it shows all of that data. The data isn't stored in like the HTML code of the website. It's being pulled from an API that connects to a database. I don't. That sounds basic. Yeah. Yeah. So backend APIs are basically ways for the front end to access that data a lot more easily. And then if you're working with Godot, Godot also has C sharp support, but let's be real, if you're using Godot, you're going to use GDScript. But fortunately, GDScript is very similar to Python, especially how it's really close to just like in the way it types and everything. Um, and then if you're going to be doing like a backend project with GDScript or with Python, Django is a really good substitute for that. Or Django is a really good tool to help build that backend API with it. And then if you're using Unreal like an insane person, there's C++. I know. But C++ is a wonderful way to use, or yeah, C++ is a wonderful programming language, and it's actually really in demand right now, ironically, just because so many people and so many schools have sort of trained their software engineers to use Python. C++ is becoming more in demand. Not to say that if you're not comfortable with C++, you need to learn C++, but it is a really good skill to have. And if you are using Unreal Engine and just using the node system, I do encourage you to learn C++, but if you insist on sticking with the node system, then try your best to understand what the nodes actually do and the logic of the nodes rather than just relying on YouTube tutorials. I think during my time, that's a trap that a lot of people fall into when they use Unreal Engine is like, oh, I can do all these things with the node system and it's like better than coding. And yes, it's more accessible than coding. However, if you don't know like what the logic of your nodes do, then there's essentially no point of putting it onto the resume because you can't explain your work. So let's talk about specific industries. And the first industry that I want to bring up is one of the biggest industrial complexes in America. And unfortunately, that's the defense industry. Um, and, of course, morally, I don't agree with everything the US. industrial military complex. But I do have to acknowledge that this is one of the biggest industries that do hire specifically for gameplay programmers. Um, this is to your own discretion. You can do your own research as to which companies you want to look into. If you are going to go down this route, I won't be talking about any specifics here. But the defense industry does tend to hire people with physics programming and computer graphics backgrounds for simulations. And in the end, games are just simulations since you are just coding physics and stuff like that for them. But they have more fun mechanics and they don't cost lives. But on the opposite end of that, you could also work for the biomedical technology industry. So this is a new sort of a new sector of biomedical technology where companies and startups are starting to use game engines to actually create assistant tools or simulations for medical use. And this is different from like AI generated like whatever medical advice. Um, the what you see here is called the Skylight Spine. This is by a company called Illuminate Surgical, and I'll be going over like a job description from them later. But essentially, what this does is that it's a projector. Like, let's say you have a body here and you're about to have spinal surgery. It's a projector that projects down, and as the surgeon is performing the surgery, it will update the projection in real time of what's going on with the bone that you're performing surgery on or the muscle information, and it will provide analytics on that muscle, which provides a lot of very useful insight, and it's a great way to use your game dev knowledge to help save lives, things like that. Yes. So this is an example from Illumina Surgical and one of their job listings. There's going to be a lot of these startups will have a lot of information and they kind of want you to wear a lot of hats at once. But don't be intimidated because I think back in 2024 I did apply to a role like this for Illumina Surgical and I ended up getting an interview even though I don't know what this means. Meetings, they just it's like, yeah, guys, like, dude, what the F? But this is one of the key things is that they're literally using Unity to create that projector technology, and I think that's like really cool. And while I was interviewing with them, they were talking about their technology and stuff like that. But yeah, they just want to see that you have familiarity with game engines, and if you could talk about it in a way that is more computer science rather than game development, then that's a really good way to transfer it, or that's a really good way to present your skills in game development itself. This is an example. This was my resume when I did apply to that company. Notice that three out of the four projects are computer graphics or game dev related. But I did like reword how the game dev projects were. This Python project was a Blender tool that I made that just talked about image textures and how I optimized my own workflow to make it easier for me to make really dumb YouTube videos. But I worded it in a way it's like, oh, this helps speed up my own development when I was like working on things. This is a general full stack application just to show them that I understand coding outside of any game dev related projects. And then this was a tool that we created for Gunslinger Hilda. Gunslinger Hilda, for context, is a roguelike or has procedurally generated elements, and the terrain changes every time you load up the game. So I talked about the procedural terrain generator that I created in Unity and how I could and it shows my rather than talking about the algorithm in specific, it shows my understanding that I do understand Unity and how to utilize their different tools for their projects. And then this was my senior project for the VR simulator. If I think the VR lab is still running. If there is the VR lab that's still open, I highly suggest you guys do it, especially if you want to stay in this like game dev adjacent space. It's a wonderful way to have a project to talk about and things like that. And then this is one that I have more direct experience with. Technical directors in animation. Technical TDs optimize their workflow for artists and production people. This is a lot different from generative AI. This is more like if an artist or if a production person needs to click like six buttons to add a file of SpongeBob into into like a certain folder. Our job is to code a tool so that they could do it in a click of a button. These tend to specialize in Python and Maya scripting. However, Maya is an expensive program, and it's also very heavy on your computer. So you could also get away with building your resume for these types of roles by coding tools for Blender. And this is an example of a Blender tool that I created on the left-hand side. And then this was for a TD role that I applied to, I think, beginning of 2025. Uh, this is this was my time at Nickelodeon as an intern. I talked a bit about what I did at Nickelodeon and how I optimized pipelines, and and then these were the projects that I displayed. I did a bit more. It was a bit more game dev focused, so I did talk about like the tools that I worked on that helped either speed up the game or helped like let artists focus on other things. Um, yeah. Such as back to the terrain generator. When they were asking me about this tool for the TD job I was applying for, I was explaining it in a way of like, oh, this procedural terrain tool frees up allows the code to create the terrain, and it frees up the artist to focus on other things such as like the character models and the other stuff for that specific game. So now we're going to focus more on artists. There's some water real quick. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Cool. All right. So now we're going to focus more on the art side of things, and I will preface I'm not a full-time artist myself. So I this is more of stuff that I've gathered from my friends who work in animation or entertainment adjacent industries. So first off is the animation industry. If you're an artist and you're trying to get into game dev, you should also look at roles in animation. These roles tend to all stick around SoCal, especially I want to say like the Burbank area, that North Hollywood area. But the animation industry, similar to the game industry, is going through a lot of shifts and changes right now. So while it's good to keep both eyes open, this is also a bit of a hard industry to try to get back into. However, another route that you could go is illustrators. There's a lot of authors out there who are looking for children's book illustrators. You could look up different children's book publishers for any books that you find at like Barnes and Nobles and stuff like that. And I think they do have listings of like authors, and then you could try cold emailing authors to create book covers for them. These are examples of stuff that my friends have made. Uh, she was an illustrator for a few children's books here, and then one of my other friends created their own graphic novel series. So there's like different. This is more of like a I want to say like a freelance opportunity type thing where you can like cold email or like find authors on social media who are looking for illustrators, and that way they don't have to go to generative AI to do it instead. And then this is the big one that I want to say is like very very significant uh, to the alternatives. This is marketing services. They're always looking for key artists. So if you work with a lot with visual development or illustrations, this is a really good industry to try and look at. There's a few, especially that Los Angeles is this entertainment hub, from like Hollywood to gaming to animation. There's a lot of companies that will be looking for external resources to advertise and create marketing assets for their products or for their movies. So companies like Bond, who are located in Pasadena, or other companies that are located in downtown LA, they're hiring for like artists and illustrators to create these like nice little like posters and stuff like that for movies and different shows that are coming out. And then this is a bit of an overview, and then this is a bit more of my personal experience. I think I graduated, it was a while ago. Uh, End of 2023, I finished school, and then I was in this like 6 month unemployment phase. During that time, I submitted over 200 applications, and out of that 200, I had 9 interviews. And that's just kind of how the state of everything is right now. But that's also to show that this is just a numbers game. I think something that's important is that I did not put my 100% in all 200 of those applications. And some of those applications that I didn't put my 100% in, I still got an interview for. And sometimes it just boils down to a numbers game. Like if you don't think you're qualified for a job, send that application. The worst they can say is no. Um, and like, what are they gonna do? Fire you? Like, you don't have a job. So really, just like send the application. There's like this. I could show the spreadsheet after the meeting, but there's a huge list of rejections, and and there's a huge list of companies that just never responded. So it just kind of boils down to just spam applications out. I think it helps a lot to have a generic software engineering resume, and then if you're looking at any of the other industries, then have a general like game dev resume, have a general um, technical director resume, and then you could put those in. Um, yeah, you could put those resumes in, even when it's like an application that's like, oh, there's not a lot of effort I need to put into this. Might as well just throw it in there and see what happens from there. I think it's also important while you're in college, or even like even when you graduate college and on the job hunt, is to have a side project. Fortunately, I was working with PyDev Studios, and we were working on Solar Suites and Absolute Momentum on the side, and it I'll kind of go over this later, but it does help give like a sense of accomplishment, especially when you're getting berated with all those no's from all the job from the different jobs and things like that. And the last thing I want to say is, please go outside. I know like the joke is CS majors don't touch grass, but being so for real, uh, going outside helps so much. Like even just going on a 30-minute walk, and even if you're working like a part-time job or something, even outside of your part-time job, just go on a walk, and then like try working at different locations when you're doing your job applications. It definitely helps take your mind off of the stress of being bundled up in your room and a lot of that. But you guys got this. Things are a bit rough right now, but don't let all those like no's discourage you. And the most important thing is find different ways to adapt your projects to the job requirements that they're listing. Um, and then, as I mentioned earlier, keep being creative. You guys are in the game dev club because you guys want to make something, and you guys enjoy making video games. Whether it's video games, animation, or even like a website or something, just constantly try and like make something. And just because it doesn't progress your career or it doesn't go on your resume, it still helps. As I said, give that sense of accomplishment working on while you're working on the job. And even when you do get a job, it does help a lot, like being having that split of like your hobbies from your corporate world. And here's a picture of Dachi back in 2023. Yeah. Thanks. One of he's old. Anyways, but yeah, thank you very much. Here's my LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. I know this was a bit of a short guest speaker talk, but here's my LinkedIn, PyDev Studios. I have a little YouTube channel, so yeah. Are there any questions? Tyler? Instagram. Yeah, I realized it was too crowded. Nice. Yeah,
So you had more questions about your projects than your internships?
I think it depends on the job. Uh I think like a good interview is having a part of having a good interview is that it's basically a conversation with the other person. The interviews that I felt went really well, they were asking about like they were asking about the things that they were curious about. So they were like, oh, like if someone was curious about working in animation, they were like, oh, like I saw you worked at Nickelodeon. What was that like? Um, this is just kind of to say it's sort of a balance of like what they were interested in asking you. It wasn't really like they focused on one particular thing. If it was like, for example, for Illuminate Surgical, they definitely asked way more about my projects. And even like when I was interviewing at Nickelodeon for the internship, I didn't have any job experience prior to that, so they were asking more about like the projects and the. I think I think I did mention my VR project that I was working on at the time. Um, but yeah, it was just a lot more like what were the interviewers interested in, and then it's important for you to place a project that you know like inside and out, so that way they can see that you're passionate about it and you're not just placing it on there for the sake of placing a project on there. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. That's it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very cool. Thank you, Larry. Yeah. Well, good to see you again. That is the meeting.